Hello, friends, future X-Women Rugby players and current players, alumni, ex-staff, parents, and supporters. And welcome to X-Women, a Player's Journey to Excellence. It's an honor to begin with a territorial acknowledgement, recognizing the traditional territory of the Indigenous people who called the land home long before the arrival of settlers and who to this day still call it home. Such a statement may be viewed as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As we gather for this meeting from across Canada, me from Mohkinstsis or Calgary, and to you who connect virtually with us here today, please take a moment and reflect on the meaning of place and the traditional land where you are today. We acknowledge the elders, past, present, and emerging, of all the land we work and live on, and their ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We acknowledge that our alma mater, St. Francis Xavier University, is in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqey peoples first signed with the British Crown in 1725. Wherever you are encouraged to acknowledge the nation and Indigenous presence of the land you are on at this moment and to reflect upon your place within these lands. So why are we here? Our aim is to inspire you, make you laugh, and have you think about how you can support one of the most decorated teams that St. FX has ever seen, the X-Women's Rugby team. What an honor to be with you here today. My name is Michelle Chesson Stewart, or Chesson Stewart. I'm a 1985 grad of St. FX, a founder and a member of St. FX's very first women's rugby team, not playing rugby anymore. And I am also a member of the Women's Rugby Cabinet with the aim of helping to set this group of fantastic women up for future success. I'm also the proud parent of an X-Men soccer player, and importantly, especially for this session, my daughter, an X-Women Rugby player named Madison or Maddie Stewart, who is a 4-time U Sport All-Canadian athlete and a 2021 graduate. And as you will hear ahead, there is absolutely no shortage of great Maddies who are drawn to the X-Women Rugby team. So a bit of history. The first women's team, which let's call it instigated, was a great success. When I speak with fellow players from that time, their big moments and their memories that still stay with each of us some 37 years later. Hard to say that out loud sometimes, but that is what it is. And for me, it still remains the feels, the knowledge that we were doing something that no other group of women had done before. We were taking on a full contact sport and we were excelling on the rugby pitch. We showed them, perhaps have been our very first rally cry. Our friends and the sports community, they were skeptical and they did not believe that we'd prevail. But we did. And by the end of the very first home match, the crowd was roaring and the excitement of this inaugural game would echo for years ahead to today. None of us ever thought that there would be such incredible successes ahead. On the way to this success at the very beginning, there was, however, one individual that for me and for our team was the linchpin, the gatekeeper, and the door opener. Ed Cardi was my philosophy professor. He arrived on campus in 1966 as a member of the philosophy department, and he taught in that department until retirement age in 2004, although he continues to teach part-time. In 1967, he had accepted the role of advisor, coach, and general minder of the rugby club. And subsequently, he was joined by the late Derek Wood of the English department. And for many years, the team of Ed and Derek worked together with the club, both with experienced players having learned the sport at school themselves. I admired Ed so much, a broad thinker, an incredible intellect, and at the same time, a keenly passionate men's rugby coach. And I knew that in order to form a successful women's team in 1984, we needed Ed's blessing. I remember stirring up my courage, asking for the time to speak with him. And as soon as my question landed, Ed accepted, picked it up, and said he would get a couple of the lads to help us out. No hesitation. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you, to present a few words on behalf of the university, the women's team's very first supporter and champion, Mr. Ed Cardi.
There you are. Can you see me, folks? There we are. Thank you for that gracious introduction, Michelle. You did miss one thing. I was looking forward to being called a snappy dresser, but that would be a bit of a stretch. There we are. Well, it's a delight for me to be present at this gathering of rugby players, past, present, and future. And Alexis has asked me to express a welcome on behalf of the university. I'm not sure I'm the person to do that because there is an official vice president of advancement, Murray Kite, and I believe Alexis, he'll be looking in later on once he's freed from his current commitment later this evening. However, what I can do is to express the very best wishes directly to the women's club, past and present, from the men's rugby club. And as you well know, there have historically and still continuing, there are close relationships between the men's club and the women's varsity team, despite the differences in status. There's good relationships between the players. Occasionally, even in the fall, we practice together, and each club and varsity team, they support each other's enterprises. In 1984, wasn't it, Michelle? The club was formed, and for the next 15 years, the women's rugby team was part of the overall rugby club at St. X. We used to operate two men's teams. The sport had begun as a men's team in 1967. In the 1980s, we developed to the point where there are two, and still are, two men's teams. And in 1984, the women's team began. So we had three teams operating as part of the club in those early days. And for 15 years after the beginning of women's rugby, we used to leave town in a large school bus with three teams for triple-headed games, you may recall. And there we are. In 1998, I think it was the CIS, as it then was, or CIAU, inaugurated a women's national championship, and a team was acquired from the Maritimes, and St. X played St. Thomas University, best in Nova Scotia against the best in New Brunswick. St. X prevailed, and they went to the first national championship. And St. X has been to the national championships in rugby every year since 1998. And they have won the national championship no fewer than 6 times, which is a magnificent achievement from small beginnings when you and I talked together originally back in 1984. The success of the club, of course, is in no small measure due to the excellent coaching they receive from Coach Michael Kavanagh and his associate, Tara Sutherland, who between them they've produced a powerhouse of, I won't say beasts from the East, but elegant and skillful players from the East, and they're a force to be reckoned with always on the national scene. And I think it's likely to continue, and the newer players are entering into a very powerful and successful tradition. The women's rugby began very much in the same way as men's rugby began, that is to say, by a group of actual players coming together and deciding that they wanted to represent the university. The university didn't decide to have a rugby team. Players decided they wanted to constitute a team. That was the case with the girls, I think, Michelle, and it was the case with the men. And back in 1967, a group of players from New Brunswick and from Pictou County approached me looking for well, basically somebody who would give them their card to go to games or look after them or function as their overall supervisor or minder, as I like to put it. And that's how the men's team began, and the women's team began very much in the same way. In fact, it's how teams should and often do begin at universities. If you can imagine a situation where varsity sports were suddenly abandoned altogether. Nevertheless, sports would spring up again in very much the same way as the men's and women's rugby team began. Students at universities who play a given sport will want to constitute a team and will want to play against their counterparts at other universities. So if you smack university sports down, they will rise again in a new and a different form. Sometimes the more sour-mouthed of faculty members deplore varsity sports, and it's true that they can, at least especially in our neighbours to the south, become excessively dominant to the point where they compromise the educational ideals of the university. But club sports and the varsity sports as practiced in Canada generally, and at St. FX in particular, they are not a distraction from the main enterprise of students at the university. They enhance the total experience, and by providing for the psychological and well-being of the students, make possible an enriched academic experience. They aren't a distraction from academic work, they enhance it. So I'm very pleased to see, despite the difference in status between varsity and club sport, to see the sport flourishing as well as it's done, both at the men's level and the point of view both, and especially from the women's in this context tonight. So congratulations on what you did, and long may the women's club flourish as it has done so well in the last 20-odd years. There we are.
Thank you so very much, Ed. And what Ed hesitated to mention was that the men's team was so generous that they used to wear their jerseys, and then when they were done with their games, hand over those jerseys so that the women could play in them, because apparently the women didn't have their own set at that time. So the kindnesses continue. We're very thankful. Thank you very much, Ed. So let's get on to our program, and let's get over to our intrepid host, who is really very well known by many of you. Joanna Alphonso is from Ajax, Ontario, and she was a prop for the X-Women's Rugby team from 2014 to 2019. And during her time on the team, Jo amassed numerous accomplishments. She's been awarded with the AUS Rookie of the Year and is a 3-time AUS MVP and 4-time AUS champ. With youth sports, Jo's successes include 1 bronze medal, 2 tournament all-star awards, 3 CIS youth sport gold medals, and she was recognized as a 4-time youth sports All-Canadian. Jo has won St. FX's Female Athlete of the Year, and last year she was selected to the Rugby Canada Senior Women's Top 50 roster. Jo's now taking in new challenges, and in 2020, while completing her education degree, Jo was a student assistant for the St. FX Women's Rugby team, and then went on to coach both the boys and girls high school team where she was teaching. In 2021, Jo was selected as a mentor coach for the Black Canadian Coaches Association's inaugural Black Female Coach Mentorship Program. She is currently the assistant coach for a women's club program where she lives. I'm so pleased to hand over the program to Jo, and am really looking forward to hearing from our fantastic lineup of players, to hear from their experiences, to learn about their aspirations, and to understand the difference that we can make as a community of alumni, past players, and parents to support sport and educational success for X-Women Rugby players ahead. Jo, over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Michelle. I appreciate that intro. So tonight, we're going to hear from a number of X-Women Rugby players that will give us some insight into their life as student athletes, their extracurricular, and their future endeavors. I will be asking them a number of questions to hear their insight, followed by some quick questions to get to know them a little better. And we will then have a little Q&A session where the audience can ask questions using your chat feature. And some closing remarks from our X-Women players. We could have chosen any player to represent the X-Women Rugby team at the moment, and they're all amazing. But we really thank the ones who chose to generously volunteer their time with us tonight. So to start things off, I want to explain a little bit about the driving force for the athletes as well as this campaign. And it's a phrase that you probably heard a lot from our team And from Alumni, it's top left. It has turned into a mantra and a driving force for the St. FX women's rugby team. Top left has meaning to past players, present players, and will hopefully mean a lot to future players. The women's rugby team at St. FX has had great successes in spite of adversity and has been a great example of how women in sport and leadership positions can and will dominate. The first thing you will hear when talking to a past ex-player or a current one would be, the team is like a family that you hold near to your heart, top left. Each and every year, St. FX women's rugby team has created a strong bond with their teammates, and in extension, the players past with players past and with players to come. The phrase top left holds those who move through the program accountable for leaving it in a better place than you found it, and it also serves as a constant reminder that keeps you supporting the program years after you've left. Over the years, the St. FX X-Women have won 22 AUS championships, 6 national championships, and countless individual accolades, and we continue to hear the legacies that they have left behind and the exciting legacies that players now are creating. On our jersey, we wear the crest on our top left, just over our hearts, to remind us that we're playing for something bigger than ourselves. We've played for those who came before us and for those who come after. So tonight, as you hear from our current ex-women rugby players, keep in mind our motto of top left and how it may resonate with you and why we are here today. Now, to welcome our panelists for the evening, I would like to introduce 5 amazing ex-women rugby players who just finished their academic year. First and foremost would be Madison McGinnis, class of 26, Madeline Weisshaar, class of 25, Annie McMullon, class of 23, Maddie Harroun, class of 23 as well, and Dani Franada, class of 22. Welcome, ladies. So before we get started, I'm going to give a little bit more of a bio of our amazing panelists. So first, to start off with Madison McGinnis, class of 26. It's from Sydney, Nova Scotia, finishing up her 2nd year of her BSc degree in human kinetics, minoring in nutrition. In her time playing rugby, Madison has played for a variety of teams, including the Nova Scotia Celtics, since she was a U16 player, and currently plays for the Nova Scotia Celtics senior women team. Madison has traveled with multiple Nova Scotia teams internationally, including to Dublin, San Diego, and Orlando with their sevens teams. Madison has also played sevens with a variety, if not all, of the Nova Scotia club teams, including HRC, Caledonia, TARS, Cape Breton, and Pictou County. In 2019, Madison attended the National U18 Women's East Camp and was localized in her grade 12 year, where she moved to Halifax and was part of Nova Scotia's high performance athletes with the Canadian Sport Centre Ignite program and was with the U18 team until late December. Madison has just completed her rookie season with the X-Women, where she was a starter and won her first AUS championship. She is also one of 12 Nova Scotian True Sport athlete ambassadors. Welcome, Madison.
Thank you, Joe.
Then we will move on to Madeline Weisshaar, class of 25, hailing from Wilcox, Saskatchewan, where she went to Athol Murray College of Notre Dame, is currently in her 1st year studying BSc in aquatic resources and hoping to minor in biology. Madeline has played rugby for 3 years for Team Saskatchewan, and in her 5 years of playing, she played at the high school, provincial, and now university level. Madeline has just changed from a wing to a back row, which everyone knows who plays the sport. That's a huge switch. And she is commended by her teammates for how much of a leader she is, even in her 1st year. Welcome, Madeline.
Thank you.
Next, we have Annie McMullon, class of 23, from Rothsay, New Brunswick, is an 8-man/hooker and is in her third year, currently studying in the Aquatics Resource Program, completing a double major in public policy and social research. Annie has played 4 years under the New Brunswick Spruce Program as well. In middle school, Annie found rugby after wanting to stay active and try something new when volleyball didn't work out, and immediately fell in love with the sport, and she's now in her third year at X playing the sport she loves. Welcome, Annie.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Then we have Maddie Harroun, a tight head prop from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Maddie started playing rugby in her grade 10 year at Citadel High School and continued to play for Nova Scotia Celtics from her U18 to U20 years, as well as playing for the Halifax Tars. Maddie is currently in her 4th year, Bachelor of Business Admin with an advancing major, accounting major. Maddie has also been an academic All-Canadian for 3 years. She's described as a humorous teammate and brings great energy to the team. She has grit and is a force to be reckoned with. Welcome, Maddie.
Thanks, Joe.
And last but not least, we have Dani Franada, class of 22. She's in her 5th year from Grand Prairie, Alberta, studying a BBA in finance. Dani started playing rugby in grade 11 at Charles Spencer High School in Grand Prairie. After committing to St. FX, Dani played with the Leprechaun Tigers in Edmonton and the Alberta Wolfpack, where she attended her first Canadian Rugby Championship just before starting her rookie season with the X-Women. Dani has now been at St. FX for 5 years, playing for 4, and has been awarded a number of accolades, including a 4-time AUS champion, AUS Rookie of the Year, a Conference Team All-Star, St. FX Rugby co-recipient Rookie of the Year, U Sports Bronze Medal in 2017, and U Sports Champion in 2018. This past year, Dani has received U Sports and Conference Team All-Star, AUS MVP, St. FX Rugby MVP, and St. FX Female Athlete of the Year. Dani has had multiple encounters with the national team and most recently was invited to Langford for the Next Gen Sevens camp, being identified on a long list and non-traveling reserve for the senior women's program. Dani's teammates say that she has a quiet confidence to her that people look up to. Welcome, Dani.
Thanks, Joey.
All right, so to get started for the fun, I just spoke about top left earlier, and I want to know, what does top left mean to you? Maybe we can start with where we left off. Dani.
All right, so I'll kick us off. To me, top left, when I think top left, I think of 3 words, and these 3 words are passion, pride, and privilege. Now, I think passion, because I really think this is a cornerstone of what this program is built on. From the ladies that fought to have us a jersey to put on, to the first team to bring home a national championship for X. I think that passion is at the core of our defining moments, and it's really where the heart of this program bleeds through. Like you said, Joe, there's a reason why we wear our X right on our chest, and it's to remind us of our why we're here, and why what we do is important, and why this matters. To me, I think it serves as a reminder that I'm playing for the teammates that are next to me. I'm playing for anyone that's stepped on the field before me, and for everyone that's going to step on the field after me. It's such an honor to be able to contribute to such a legacy and such a rich history. And it kind of leads into pride. So I think pride, because aside from, pre-game nerves you get and the excitement, pride is one of those feelings that I just always get when I pull on an X jersey. And I still remember the first time I ever got to pull that X over my chest. And I think that sense of pride just strengthens every time I put it on, and it gets stronger. You could probably relate, Joe, to when it comes closer to being the last time I'm going to pull it on. And then privilege, I just don't think that there's a better word to describe the opportunity to contribute to a legacy that this program has. I mean, a 6-time national champion, like 22-time AUS winners. There's just no comparing to this team. And I think that just the opportunity to create your own legacy and build upon the rich history and leave that jersey in a better place than it was is just such an honor. And I think it doesn't even just fully just encompass the field. I think that I feel a lot of privilege when you walk into a room halfway across the country at a national championship and there's a room full of alumni that are there that know your name and that want to talk to you and want to send you off to your next game. I think that's an incredible thing. Like when you can see a familiar face in the stands and hear familiar cheers from some of the moms out there. I know your voice by heart. But that's just an incredible thing to have that support system. I think that top left really encompasses that why, and it really ties together this team from our past players, from our supporters to our future players and everyone in between.
That's awesome, Dani. Thanks for sharing that. I don't think anyone could have said it better than that when leaving or being in your older years, about to leave the program and somewhere better than you found it. That's awesome, Dani. Thanks for that. I'd like to hear from Madeline about what top left means to you as a first-year player. As Dani talked about, she's experienced all of this love and appreciation for the jersey in her 5 years of playing at X. And I want to hear from Madeline how that might be different from someone who's new to the program.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, like in the very beginning, when you were giving like a brief description on what top left kind of means just in general, when you said the major theme is family, and like that's one of the first thing that comes to my mind when I ever have to like talk about top left, just because I just like entered into this environment and I like felt immediately accepted. And that's like what a family is. Like they accept you, they love you for everything that you have. And it also, I've been thinking a bit more about it now, just as like I'm at the end of the year. And it's also just about like growth. So I'm growing with the people who are with me on the team and learning from those who came before us, and then also just being leaders for those who are coming after us and the new people who are like coming onto the team next year, which is really exciting. And just to like touch on family again, it's like even just all the people that are on this call today, it's like really important. And it just like really drives home the fact that we have such deep roots established, and it's like a very profound like environment that I've never really experienced before.
That's awesome, Madeline. Thanks for sharing. So the next question I want to ask is, what do you think is special about the sport of rugby, and or what do you wish most people knew about rugby? And I'll start with Maddie Harroun.
What I think is most special about rugby, as top down, you have 15 different people on the field. There's a position for everyone, which is amazing. You don't feel like you don't fit in some sort of way. You have all shapes and body types, all different personalities, which I think is amazing. Definitely coming from a different sport where you start to think it's not the best thing for you anymore. You have this new love for something. And growing within this sport has been amazing, and just making sure that you fit that position and everything has been so special. And one thing I wish people knew more about rugby is that once you get into the community and within rugby, is that it's loving no matter what. There's so much respect within the sport. It's top down from how long it's been established, way before I've been alive. And just knowing that you always have people to rely on I wish more people knew what rugby was, just not just the sport.
Well said, Maddie. That's awesome. Annie, what about you? What do you think is special about the sport of rugby, and what do you wish more people knew?
So one of the main things that I love about rugby is just how it brings so many people together.
So when I tell someone that I do play rugby, or someone has played rugby, they've either played it themselves or have a friend who's played, and usually you all know each other just because of the rugby community is so small, especially in the Maritimes. And it's one of those sports that everyone's at least wanted to try once, and they're like, oh, like a friend of mine played that in high school, and a girl I knew growing up, actually, her mom tricked her parents into letting her play because her parents wouldn't let her go near the field. But one thing I do wish is that everyone could experience going to like a professional rugby game at least once in their life, just because my first experience was in a stadium watching the HSBC Sevens in Vancouver with my team a few years back. So I went with Team New Brunswick, and it was a really big core memory of mine, just because everyone was dressed in these such creative costumes there, and I never experienced anything like that with any other sports team before. And it didn't matter who you were cheering for, people were high-fiving, wearing different jerseys, and it was just a really beautiful thing to experience. We were all just really happy to be there. So I think that's really beautiful in the sport.
That's awesome. You say the costumes. I'm wondering if we still have the tickle trunk going. Good, that's good.
Yes, tickle trunk is safe in M14 for the ones moving in. Maddie McInnis, that's you taking over that.
Awesome, that is good to know. A lot of costumes to choose from, so that's great.
Oh yeah, we've added
Madison,
a few.
Yeah, that's awesome. Madison, what about you? What do you think was special about the sport of rugby?
Similar to like what Maddie Harroun said, I agree. I don't think people know that it's like there is a position for every body type. Each position has different strengths. So some positions, maybe you have to be a faster runner, some you might have to be stronger. So there literally is a position for every body type, every like different type of strengths. Also, just that it may look rough and scary, but it's actually one of the most like encouraging, accepting environments. I've played lots of sports growing up, and by far rugby, once I started playing, it just felt right. So I just hope people know that it may look rough, but it's not actually, it's much more than just how it looks.
That's awesome. A lot of times we get parents who are might be scared to put their children in rugby, and it's almost like us debunking that idea that rugby is not a safe sport. We learn how to tackle. We learn all the basics of tackling, etc., and how to go into contact. And I think that's true. We do wish people knew how safe it was as a sport. All right. So, actually, can you tell us what your most memorable or favorite moment is so far? And we'll start with Madeline, and then we'll go up by year, because that might be a little different for each of you. So Madeline, and then Madison and Maddie.
Yeah, so my favorite moment this year, I guess, just like looking back on some of the crazy stuff that we've done together. But the one that's sticking out the most to me is when we were all at the sports banquet together. And it was a really fun time because we got to like, get all like, usually we're looking pretty rough after practice, so we all like got all cleaned up, we looked pretty good, and went to the sports banquet, and it was just so interesting, like just to see like how like everyone didn't have to say anything. It was just as soon as someone on our team's name was called, it was such an exciting, and everyone was like cheering for them, because like it just shows like how much we care about them, and like how we've all worked to like get those people into the position that they're in today. And so it's super, it was a really exciting thing just to see how like amped up we all got from each other. And it like looked like we were kind of crazy to some other teams in there, but we all knew that those are our people up there, and we were really excited for that. So that was a really, really cool moment.
That's awesome, Madeline. For sure, there's this support that you have from when you feel like you're in a team, you feel like you're in a family. The support is like endless, and that's so awesome to hear. Madison.
I have like two moments so far that really stood out to me, and one being winning the AUS championship again. But this year just felt unlike other years, even though I haven't played on the team before. I've watched it and just watched their performance, and it just always seemed to be like so easy to win. And then this year it was more of a challenge than it has like years before, and it really was like we weren't sure if we actually were going to win. So then we actually did. It was like we saw everyone, like you could just see everyone put like their game face on and get out like in the zone, and we said we wanted to win, and we just went out there and did it. So that, and then winning and getting the trophy and the hats and stuff, it was just a great moment. And then also the second one, complete opposite side, would be the varsity athlete crawl this year, with all the different teams like coming together to play a bunch of fun games. It was so much fun to like bond with not only our team but the other varsity women athletes at St. FX.
That's great. For sure. I was watching the AUS game, and the fight and the grit you had in that game was something to behold. That was awesome. And the pub crawl is also one of my favorite nights. It is a great time just playing sports that no one plays, things that everyone, you don't know if you're good at, but you still try. And it's awesome to have women supporting women even in that sense. Let's hear from Maddie.
I think my most memorable moment over 4 years, it's been a lot, but I think what really sticks out in my head was in 2019 when our team got the Saturday homecoming game. And that whole day just felt so special, from the morning banquet with a lot of female faculty, other sports, just toning in saying it's going to be a great thing for female sports that day. And then I remember going up, our warm-up was just a different type of feel. I think I look back to 2019, and I think that probably was the best game that we played all year. And I remember just watching everybody started coming out. They started introducing or having a representative for every single year of the national championship winning teams. Joe was 2018. And I just remember knowing how special it was and how privileged we were to be getting this game and getting to show what X-Women meant, X-Women Rugby meant to the school, and showing what we had, and just showing that it isn't just a day to celebrate, not just, it had to be for women as well, I think. And I think that's definitely one of the most memorable moments. And then especially having that homecoming game, it was just nice for the afterwards after all.
That's awesome. That's definitely part of the legacy that year's leaving behind, right? And the part of the legacy that those women who came before you have built. So that's awesome. Let's hear from Annie and then Dani.
Yeah, so there's been a few over the past 3 years, but my favorite moment was definitely this year, winning the AUS finals against Acadia. Just because of the season we had, we were so resilient, and it was a huge storm. It was downpouring. It was crazy rain. It was easily the hardest that's ever been to throw a line out by far. The refs were very lenient with me, which was nice. But we had such high energy during the warm up, and we just knew what we had to do. We all looked at each other. It was like, let's get this done. Like, we know we can do this. We had the rain on our side, and we knew like out and out, like maybe they could take us. They've taken us before, but in the rain, we all just knew it. We could feel the energy. So my favorite moment of that game specifically was when we were driving the scrum so far, so fast, because our pack is so dominant. I love the pack. I love our pack. That I was having a lot of trouble keeping the ball in because it was so wet, so rainy. So I had to put my feet around the ball and bunny hop. And I actually got just over 10 yards, and Maddie Ross actually scored a try off of it because we were going so fast. We were zooming. I was just really proud of my team that game because we worked and fought so hard as a unit. It was just a big collective effort, which was awesome. I'll remember that forever.
That is amazing, Annie. Tara and her forward pack, I see it's still going strong. Dani.
All right, so yeah, lots to choose from. All great picks, by the way. Great moments. I think that I've picked kind of two. I picked one more social, one more rugby game. And this one's kind of a little generic, but you really can't beat the feeling of winning a national championship. I think just that entire experience of just playing our best rugby and just really coming together as a team and taking that gold medal. I I remember we scored a try right at the end of the game, of the last game, and I was lining up to make my kick. Well, as I do, just going, taking my minute, long setup, and I completely missed this kick. Completely didn't even go near the post. And I think I'm outing myself because nobody probably knew that everybody's paying attention to whatever just happened. But I look at the ref, and the ref looks back at me and goes, "Well, you're still a national champion." I go, "Yeah, fair enough." And then all of a sudden I was dogpiled by everyone. I think that was one really special thing about that. It felt especially nice to win on Acadia's turf. And to have, it was so close to home that we had so many people, we had our entire team there, really. We had so many people that were cheering us on from Halifax, or if they were in Wolfville or anywhere from Nova Scotia or the Maritimes. There's so many people that came in to support us. And I think that was such a special thing. That stadium was packed and it was loud and we could hear it, we could see the signs, and it just brings such an energy that is this community, which is this family. So I think that is a really memorable moment that I won't forget. And my second is whenever we go on a bus trip, we do a little Rookie Idol, and I love Rookie Idol. I think in my first year, I think, Joe, you were the host with Oopie. And it's just hilarious. I'm not going to go too much into details, but we have little skits and everyone just sings their heart out. So they basically put on some noise canceling headphones and just put on a performance. And there's nothing really better to do on a 10-hour road trip to Quebec. So I think that is just a really fun thing. Everyone's exhausted. Everyone's back hurts from being on that bus. And we just have a good time together. I think that's just fun.
I'm sure Mike loves our singing. So Rookie Idol is always it's always a great performance. And to speak about your rugby in 2018, you're right, it was so special to have it so close to our what we call home now, right? There's so many people in the fans. Yeah. I remember turning to the back line and having to scream to say what the next play was. So it was honestly very special. All right, so a few more questions, or a couple more questions until we get to our quick fire and then some Q&A. What sorts of skills has rugby or sport given you that you will take into your future or take into your next year of schooling? Let's start with Madeline.
Yeah, so I think a big one that is I think about a lot, and especially just doing job interviews and stuff like that, when they ask you what are your skills and stuff, it's oh, I can work in a team environment, and that's a very important thing, I think, when you're going into your adult life and then your professional life. And it's just really important because it shows that you're able to work with other people, and you can either solve conflict or you can work things out, and you're compatible with other people. And I think especially in rugby, it's very chaotic and there's a lot of stuff going on and there's raised voices and stuff, but it's good because life is not much different than being chaotic and loud and crazy. So yeah, rugby has definitely taught me it's you got to roll with the punches sometimes, and it's really hard and it's difficult, but a lot of stuff is difficult. And so I think it's it's setting you up for success in the future, and being resilient and gritty and able to bounce back from really difficult challenges. So yeah, I think that would be the main thing.
That's awesome, Madeline. Thanks for sharing. Let's go to Annie.
Hi, yeah. So my big one would probably be just staying cool under pressure, because like what Maddie just said, kind of feels like you're going into a battle sometimes because everyone's screaming, tensions are high already. Sometimes you scream at your teammate on the field and afterwards everyone knows it was just the tension of the field, like it's okay. But just having to take that second and breathe and having to stay calm in these high tense situations would really pay off, I think, in the workplace as well. And that pretty much sums it up, I think. Just being able just to take a second, breathe, it's okay.
Awesome. And Madison.
Rugby is definitely taught me, like, gave me a lot of new skills and stuff. One being like resilience. Yeah, and like hard work and stuff, like put in the hard work. It also taught me to be more confident in myself too, and gave me some leadership skills I didn't even know I had, or brought out leadership skills I guess I didn't know I had too. So that definitely helps in a work environment. Those are like the big ones. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So the next question I have for Dani and Maddie Harroun. So what is the most challenging thing about being a female varsity athlete? So Maddie, let's hear from you first.
I think there's a lot of things that are very challenging being a female athlete. But I think one encompassing challenge is just the pressure you hold as a female athlete. You're always scrutinized. You're always going to be told that you're not going to be as, not always, but it's getting more changing times. But back then, that you are not going to be as enjoyable as a men's sport. You're not going to be as enjoyable as, or interesting, or it's not going to be as intense, which does not hold true at all. And I don't think this pressure ever stops, and that's just how society is, with society norms. It's like, it doesn't just base on your performance ever within female sports. It's your character. It's going to be how nice you are, how close you are to being what this perfect female person is, a persona, which is unfair because with our male latter parts, it's not the same. And it also comes from pressure of financial stability, I think. Women's sports are so underfunded, and that's within all sport, like in all sports. And having to be like women having to pay out of pocket to have the same benefits as their male counterparts, I think that is extremely a huge challenge pressing on female sports. And you see people dropping out because of this unfair advantage as our male counterparts do sometimes.
Well said, Maddie. That is so true, everything you said. Dani, what do you think is the most challenging thing about being a female athlete?
I think the hardest thing about being a female athlete would just, Maddie kind of summed it up pretty well, but I would say just managing expectations as well, and kind of trying to find that balance for you, whatever that may be, because I know it's different for everyone. I think that having expectations are a good thing. You have expectations for yourself, and if you care about those things, pressure comes with that, and pressure is a good thing. I think there's a lot of good things that come from pressure, but it is an easy thing to fall under, especially when there's a lot of things happening. So we've got school, we've got rugby, and you have just life. Yeah, I mean, you've got a social life, you've got a family, you've got friends, you've got things to do, and you got to take care of yourself as well. So I think that probably the hardest thing about being a student athlete is just managing those expectations and finding kind of your balance that fills your cup and gets you to get to everything you need to do, but also gives you some time to relax and take a breath. I mean, I'm still trying to figure that out too. I think everyone still kind of figures that out as they go, and it's a constant learning thing. But finding that balance is such a critical part of being a student athlete. I think it's something that just keeps your sanity. So that is what the most difficult part, I would say, for me is.
Thanks for sharing that, Dani. It's well said. All right, so one more question, and then we're going to get to our rapid fire questions. So in sport, we often talk about creating and curating a culture. We hear that a lot at St. FX, especially within the Leadership Academy and with our leadership positions. How do you actively create a culture within your team? And what does that culture mean to you? Let's start with Annie.
Hi. Yes, it is very pressed in the Leadership Academy. For those of you who know, with Leo and Angie, it's the headline for sure. But the main thing that I think that you need to build culture is just to be an approachable leader. And that's one thing that I really strive for, just so that everyone's on the team is comfortable with one another. We don't have to be best friends, but just have that comfortability. And conflicts are bound to happen with such a large team. It is inevitable. But the key is just to make sure these little issues don't build up and become worse than they really are, because that's where trouble really starts to kick in, I feel like. And personally, I actively try and check in with each member of the team, just because you never know what is happening in someone's life. And those little check-ins can really make people feel heard and included within such a big team. And even if they're not the star player, or they might not even really start, just reassuring them that they're not forgotten is a huge part of our culture in my mind, especially on such a big team. I think that really plays a part.
Well said. Awesome. For sure, agree with that. Let's hear from Madison.
Mine's similar to Annie's. I do agree with making sure that everyone does feel appreciated and seen on the team as well. It's a big thing if you're trying to build culture and you're only including some people. I also try to encourage others to take part in our culture, promote it, live it. I also do my best, like Annie said, I do my best to implement it and show my teammates that like what the culture is that we're building on. And yeah, just basically what she said too, just making sure you stay in touch with people. I love checking in on people individually rather in front of like everyone, just in case there is something they need to speak about. And it does give them that a sense of like bonding, and just want to make them feel like they can come to us to talk. We are family, so you can come and speak to us about anything you need to.
That's awesome, Madison. Thanks for sharing. And then let's hear from Madeline.
Yeah, so those are two very good sums of what the culture is on our team. But also, yeah, like I would emphasize a lot of communication, and I've noticed that just recently, like with the stress of finals and everything, we've been reaching out a lot to each other, and it's really fun because we get to like go to meal hall together, and like, you know, in the group chat, like everyone's sending in like what they're kind of up to, and it is really fun because I think like just in this day and age, like being on those platforms and communicating with each other is like super prevalent, and it is a very important part of like the future of like culture. And it's just important that to establish those connections, because, you know, like some people maybe aren't as like outgoing in a very social environment, so it's interesting for people to kind of express like who they are maybe on like a different platform, and it kind of includes everyone. And yeah, it's very important to the health and the unity of our team, I think.
That's great. Thanks for sharing, Madeline. I think something that also we acknowledge is that Mike and Tara allow for us to create a culture that works for us and a culture that works for our team at the time. I remember just being, after 2015 with our huge loss in the AUS finals, and we needed to rebrand, and Mike and Tara were just like, do what you need to do, make the team bond as you may need to, and just go from there and help support one another. And I'm so happy to hear that till this day, you all are still supporting each other in the ways that you need to be supported. So that's awesome. All right, so I have some quick fire questions for you. And then we will get into some Q&A. But before we get into the quick fire, I'm going to ask if any audience members want to ask our panelists questions, if you can put it in the Q&A in the chat box as they answer these rapid fires. All right, so first question, where do you prefer to study? Library, Nicholson, or the Lonely Lounge? We'll start with Maddie Harroun.
Library, but I have to include Mulrooney. It's my tried and true spot.
Awesome. Sorry, Dani.
Are those three the only options?
If you have another option, go right ahead.
I'm gonna have to just say the table in my kitchen. That's probably my favorite place to be. It maybe doesn't always allow for the most studying, but you know, I get what I can done.
That's awesome. Madison.
Either the library or my room.
Awesome. Madeline.
Yeah, I'm pretty devoted to the library. It's really quiet.
And Annie.
See, I recently switched to the library just because I had to like sit down and like study, because Mulrooney, I just get so distracted because everyone's in there. But I have to give a shout out to the Lonely Lounge because I love it. I love it in there. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Did I say Nicholson? You can tell my age that we had Nicholson. It's the Mulrooney Center. I'm telling on myself. All right, next question. Chicken or turkey pesto from Tall and Small, or Rita Wrap from the Sub?
Turkey pesto.
Maddie, you seem turkey pesto. Maddie, you seem
Turkey pesto, but you have to add feta.
Ooh, that's a life hack.
I'm gonna go with
Madison.
Rita Wrap just because I don't like pesto.
Fair enough. Madeline.
Okay, I've never had pesto chicken or turkey from the Tall and Small, so Rita has been good to me this year.
Good, that's awesome. And Annie.
I'm actually a vegetarian, so I kind of rock the black bean burger from the Sub, but
That is awesome. The Sub has amazing choices, and I'm glad it's inclusive. All right, what's your favorite form of recovery? So after game day, what's your favorite form of recovery? Let's go with Annie.
I'm not sure. I like a good ice bath, and then I complain about being sore for like a week and a half until the next game. I'm sore, and then me and my roommates usually like to rock a puzzle in the living room, so for the break. But yeah, that's my go-to.
That's awesome. Madeline.
I like to take baths with Epsom salt, just to get the muscles relaxed. It's a little therapeutic moment. Yeah.
That's great. And Madison.
I like to take a bath as well, get a good sleep, and eat good food.
That is key. Dani.
I am a nice bath enthusiast since we've gotten the new therapy room. Pre-game, post-game, doesn't matter. I'll use it as much as Tara will let me.
That's awesome. Maddie.
I will be saying the same. I think Tara knows that I stayed many hours in there, and it's bath, what's called contrast, everything, just making my body feel somewhat okay after a game.
Yeah. I think I lived in the therapy room in my 4th and 5th year, so I hear that. All right, and most importantly, I'm a forward, obviously. So what's your post-game meal, favorite post-game meal? Let's start with Dani.
Favorite post-game meal? I'm gonna have to go. Okay, if we're on the road, I'm gonna be honest. I love when Michael gets us to stop at Wendy's. I love it. It's so good. And there'll be a variety of things. I'll probably opt for a baked potato, everyone, this year, every time. Baked potato, maybe chicken fingers or something. I like chicken fingers. For at home, sometimes the roommates and I will do like a chicken, or I'll get a chicken fingers, but we'll do like a Snappy's order, chicken fingers and a Caesar salad.
Love those Wendy's pit stops. Let's hear from Maddie Harroun.
I think for home games, definitely my parents and I always, and my sister, we always go out after games, and Brownstone is a must. And I have never swayed away from a blue cheeseburger for some reason. Don't know why.
That's great. And Madison.
Yeah, I agree with Dani. If we're on the road, Wendy's all the way, especially since we don't have one in McGullin. And then if we're playing home games, same as Maddie, my mom will be at every single game, no matter where it's at. So we'll always go out for something to eat afterwards. Doesn't really matter where, but yeah.
Awesome. Madeline.
I really like pizza. So like even if it's like, yeah, like at home, going to meal hall, getting pizza, it hits really. Yeah, it's good.
That's awesome. And Annie.
So I think everyone on the team kind of knows I'm like A&W enthusiast. So a Beyond Meat burger combo, no matter where I am, anywhere, it's Beyond Meat burger from A&W for sure.
That's great. I remember waiting in A&W lines just to get that because it's so good. All right. So the last question we have, and you might want to think about it a little bit. What does the Rugby Alumni Fund mean to you, and why is it important? Let's go to Madeline.
Yeah, so this like alumni fund is really important, I think, because just being my first year and like going to spend a lot more time here, I think it's like really important just to the development of our program. And it's really like exciting just to see like what the future can hold with the support of our alumni and past players. And so, yeah, it's like since we have such like a great connection with our alumni and we have a lot of support from them, it like we're very grateful for anything like, you know, that they can spare, I guess, for a great future here.
That's awesome. Annie, what does the Alumni Fund mean to you and why is it important?
I think Maddie said it really well, just this kind of connection too, that we can do this and really get to know the alumni and the current players, just get each other talking just about women in sport in general as well. I think is something that wouldn't have happened even like 5-10 years ago. So I think it's amazing that this is happening and is getting done. And just a big thanks to all the alumni that support us and that continue to support us. I'm excited to join in a couple years. But yeah, it's just very much appreciative and I wish we could show that more. We love you.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie. Let's hear from Madison.
This fund can open up a lot of doors for this team. I just think that what we're missing is just the fund. It'll give us that little extra pushes to get more recruits, more attention to our team, more support, just everything we need, everything that's good for this team it's a lot of it's coming from this fund. So yeah, I think I'm excited to see what we can make happen with this.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And Dani.
I think this fund or the committee, I think it's just a really important thing because I think it really emphasizes that community. I think it really ties together from what we talked about at the start with top left and how that's a reminder, even when you're gone from this team, when you've left the jersey, that you're still part of that community. So I think it's such a great opportunity to be able to like talk to everyone. I mean, I just talk a little bit, get to hear from us, from current players. I know there might be some future players on this call, which is an awesome thing, because it's just great to communicate and talk to people that have this in mind, that think they want to be a part of this, and just show them that it is such an amazing thing to be a part of. And then talk to obviously the past players that have been in our shoes. They know what we do. I'm sure they've ran the same drills as us. They've ran the same up downs as us. They've experienced not the same things exactly, but they've experienced what it means to be an X-woman just the same as all of us. So I think that is such a really special thing that we could do through this cabinet. And the cabinet, honestly, it's a group of people who just care about this team and care about this program and like us as players so much. I think it's such an important opportunity to just help people that don't have all the opportunities. I think that it opens doors, like Maddie said, to kind of elevate this team and offer opportunities to people that don't always get it. And as women in sport, it's not always there. We don't get the same funding as a lot of other teams get. I mean, say you look at the alumni network of the football team and the money that they bring in, and they're really just trying to form that for us and to create that ball, get that ball rolling. And it's up to us to carry that forward and to keep that building for future years. So then someday we've got $1 million change room. I mean, I love our change room regardless, but we've got $1 million change room because we built that community. So I think that these are just great steps in that direction. And very appreciative of the cabinet and everything that they do for us.
Awesome, Dani. Thanks for sharing that. And last but not least, Maddie Harroun.
I think Dan really summed it up there. She did a really great job. I think just to tone in just how fundamentally important it is to break down these barriers, as it is part of the cabinet's, especially in 2019 it was, speech, and just getting those financial aids to more and more athletes as we can draw in the best talent across Canada, which as female athletes, it's very hard to do. And knowing how appreciative we are to, along with this, learn the rich history of X-Women Rugby, and getting to know our alumni. I got a couple messages from alumni throughout this, and it's amazing to be able to touch base and know you always have support. And it definitely comes from within past, present, and future years. So I'm excited, and also like Annie, to be a part of it. So yeah.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. We have one question from the audience, and it's about winning in even years. So how superstitious are you about winning in even years? Let's hear from Annie and Dani.
See, that's a great question. Personally, I'm not overly superstitious, but it feels like a lot of expectation a little bit to a point. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens next year, I guess. We're all gonna work hard and put our best foot forward. So I think we can do it. I think we can. But yeah.
Awesome. And Dani?
I don't know about superstitious, but maybe a little stitious. I think that, like Annie said, I think there's a lot of expectation there, and we just gotta take that head on and embrace that. I know that when it was 2018 and that was my first even year that I was playing, it wasn't like, it felt like a duty. It was like, there's no option. We are winning this year. It's not even a question. And I think that we're taking that into next season. And I hope that we work hard over the summer and come back for training camp ready to go, because there's one empty spot on the wall. Every time I walk into the gym, we have our morning practices all off season. I've been looking at that spot on the wall, and there's one little space for one banner, and it would just complete a nice little all even years. I think from the first, I just noticed this. I don't know. I spend way too much time looking at the walls during practice, I guess. But we had our first championship in 2006. And then the next one was in 2010, was it?
10.
2010, yeah. 2006, 2010, 2012, yeah. So it was like a little 4-year gap. And so we're obviously supposed to be winning in 2020 when we had our COVID season, but we had COVID season. So we didn't end up getting that. And now, so our last one will be 2018, and then this one will be 2022. So there's another 4-year gap that we could kind of complete a full little circle. I'm just saying that'd be kind of fun. I don't know, patterns.
So just a little superstitious.
Just a little stupid.
Awesome. Thank you all for your time, ladies. We really appreciate it. And all your hard work and dedication to the team right now does not go unnoticed. And I want to appreciate the cabinet as well for putting on we're bringing on such amazing players and such great conversations we had. I give you I commend you for continuing a legacy that has come long before you. You're doing a great job in that. So to wrap things up, I would like to bring back Michelle for our closing remarks. Thanks again, ladies.
Thank you, Joe.
Hi, and thank you each so very, very much. Don't go off screen. Keep your faces up here. I saw somewhere in the chat line that someone wants to take a photo. I don't need to be in it. It's been too long since I played. You guys are recent. Anyway, someone wants to take a picture just after this finishes up. Thank you, Joe, for bringing out great responses from this wonderful group of young women and leaders. And Annie, Dani, Maddie, Madeline, Madison, we really, really appreciate your contributions tonight to the team. And we all, I'm going to speak for everybody, we all wish you only the best. And also the Women of Excellence are going to be making a donation in honor of each of you. And so each of your names will be on the giving wall in the locker room, which is very wonderful. And so what is next for everybody who's been chiming in? And thanks so much for being here. Number one, be an ambassador, like watch the games, tell other folks about how wonderful this team is. 2, be an advocate for women's sports, support women's sports. And then ask yourself how you can be a stellar person who sets up the future for young women playing sports ahead. We've heard them say it tonight, and I still believe it's true. At the beginning, we were so proud that we were playing rugby, and it was different. It was unusual at the time, but some of the same things we're hearing. Women's sports need support, and this X-Women's team is really worthy. So, and of course, you know, the Women's Rugby Cabinet, we've got some great ideas for you. We've got lockers to be named. We've got that honoring naming wall. We've got lots of things that we can be doing, and we're going to be celebrating this over the next couple of years. It's a long haul, and we are going to meet that goal. Like you guys said a few times, we said we had to win. We're just going to do it, and that's what's going to happen. So thank you very much for everybody who's involved with this team. Very, very special shout out to Mike and to Tara, to all of my fellow cabinet members, a great bunch of gals, players, parents, and just boosters, period. And to the advancement department and team, Alexis and Wendy, we don't do this without you guys. And thank you again for joining in. Please look ahead, show up at homecoming in summer at the same time. Training camp's going to be on. All the nerves will be out on the field, out on the pitch. So come and see it and play. And I'm sure at that time, we've been talking to Mike and Tara, and they might just have a little gathering, maybe a barbecue, maybe a little what the hopes and dreams are for the season, all that kind of good stuff. And then in the fall, join us and come and watch some of the best women's rugby being played in Canada at St. FX this fall, whether you watch online with the weird announcers, depending on where you're listening in, or you're able to be sidelined at the pitch, watching the field and watching this great group. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you.